All right, Colts Nation, real fast before we start today's video, I just want to let you know that on the back end of today's video, after the outro music, there's a video I would like you to watch about Colts superfan. Some would know him as Lucho Blue, Eli Otero Jr., and his son, Eli Otero III. This is Colts 2021 Fan of the Year. You think me and you are big fans. This guy is one of the biggest fans I know. Opportunity for you to donate to a good cause, the ALGS Fund. You go ahead at the end of the video, you watch the story, and if you could donate anything at all, $1, $2, $1,000,000, whatever it is, it helps. I'll leave all the information for that in the description, and we'll go from there. Gosh, I really love listening to Chris Ballard talk. I mean, whenever Chris Ballard is anywhere giving an interview or a press conference, I am tuned in all the way. And, it's not always reasonable to expect a coach, a player, a GM, et cetera, anyone involved with the organization. You cannot just expect them to tell you the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth the entire time. But depending on who it is that you're listening to, you might get the truth or something quite close to it more often than you would other guys. And Chris Ballard is one of these guys that is going to tell you what he thinks when he can, and he's going to get you real close when he can't. And it's one of the reasons that I happen to love him as the general manager of this team. Now, I am a little late in reacting to it, but I've just been reflecting on it. If you didn't realize or didn't watch yet, last week, I don't know, about a week and a half ago, even just a week ago, the official podcast of the Indianapolis Colts, by the way, is actually not me. I know some of you guys may think that I am the official podcast of the Indianapolis Colts. I assure you, if I was, my set may be a little more, I don't know, professional, right? But dude, JJ on the show asked Chris Ballard about Shane Steichen and what he has brought to the organization. And I'm just curious what you guys took away from Chris Ballard's answer for those of you who watched, right? Because for me personally, I just could not help but feel like whether it was with malice or not, whether it was with intention or not, that Chris Ballard was just taking some jabs a little bit at Frank Reich. Again, don't know if it was in his intention, but when he was asked by JJ what was brought to this team by Shane Steichen, just some of the key talking points I'm going to give to you right now, okay? So he said that Shane was authentic. He said it's one of the things that stuck out in the interview. He is not trying to be something he is not. And now that's one thing, but as you get into this, for me, it just gets more and more. You'll get what I'm saying. He says Shane Steichen is demanding. He's very demanding. He says he wants what he wants, and he's going to let you know about it. He's going to let you hear it. He's real with his players and himself every single day. He does not blame the people around him when something is going wrong. He takes accountability, and he also holds the players accountable when it is their fault. Now, does that at all sound like he is praising Shane Steichen on all of these, I don't know, qualifiers that would be considered criticisms of a guy like Frank Reich? The big thing with Frank Reich is that he was too nice of a guy. Perhaps there was a lack of accountability on the team, and perhaps he was a little passive in his approach about, how he was going to get the best out of his guys. Now, we all know Frank's a nice guy, a smart guy, I'm sure, a sleepy guy at that, right? A warm glass of milk nodding off by the recliner. Yeah. But ultimately, Shane Steichen is everything that Frank Reich is not. Another example of this, you would look at the trenches with Zaire Franklin. Oh, my goodness. I say it all. If you guys are not listening to the trenches with Zaire Franklin, I'll be honest, like, you're not even a Colts fan. I mean, it is as good of a podcast as there is really. It's one of my favorites in the world right now, if I'm going to be 100% honest with you. I mean, there's not just that they're Colts guys, the personalities. I mean, it's a special show. You have to go listen. But Kenny Moore was on there, and even he said that the biggest difference, a player saying this, the biggest difference between the Colts this year and the Colts last year is Coach Shane Steichen. And you can't help but look at the Colts and compare them to what is going on in Carolina right now. Bryce Young, the poor guy, has no clue that his coach is a wet paper bag, but we see Frank Reich quite possibly a one and done over there in Carolina. And I mean, there was a point this season where they go out there, Bryce Young scanning the defense, he's lined up behind the right guard, and Miles Sanders has to move him over. Now, is that directly related to coaching? I don't know, but that's certainly symptomatic of perhaps not paying attention to the details and not just, I don't know. Am I grasping at straws here? Am I reaching? I don't think something like that would ever happen on Shane Steichen's watch. I mean, you even go back to the history between Frank Reich and Shane Steichen. They worked together for years in, I guess it was San Diego at the time, but who we know now as the Los Angeles Chargers. The Chargers, right? They worked together for years under Ken Wisenhunt with Frank Reich as the offensive coordinator, Shane Steichen as the offensive quality control. Woo, say that 5 times fast. The offensive quality control coach. They worked together. Frank Reich took that Chargers offense, inherited a good offense, slowly deteriorated into one of the worst offenses in football, ultimately gets fired in 2016. In comes Shane Steichen to take over as the offensive coordinator of that team. That same offense with the same personnel and the same players goes from one of the worst in the league to a top 5 offense in football. Does that story at all sound familiar to you? We are Colts fans. Does it sound familiar? I bring that up because it does, again, crystallize the point that Frank Reich, or rather Shane Steichen, is everything that Frank Reich is not. And Frank Reich is a successful coach in this league. So it does make you wonder just how good Shane Steichen is. And right now, the question for me that absolutely brings that to the forefront is this. When you go through coaches in this league right now, you think of all of them off the top of your head, think as many as you possibly can. How many of them do you think would have the Indianapolis Colts, as currently constructed with all they have been through, at 5-5 with an opportunity to make the playoffs over a halfway through the season? Huh? I mean, you could even go through the division. Doug Peterson, one of the great coaches of the past 20 years. Are you 100% confident that even the great Doug Peterson would have this Colts team at 5-5 right now? I mean, you think about all that this team has been through between the Jonathan Taylor drama, the injuries at corner, the Isaiah Rodgers betting the under at corner, right? The Anthony Richardson injury obviously goes without saying. You take all of these things, and this team is still one that has found ways to win. And even though sometimes it is the offense playing well and the defense not playing well, and sometimes it's the other way around, like we recently saw in New England, the fact of the matter is that this team finds different ways to win, which I think on some level has to go back to Shane Steichen. I mean, if nothing else, it speaks to a morale, a belief in themselves, a grit that was severely lacking in this team for what felt like quite a few years now. And you hear Shane Steichen talk, and it is no surprise that these guys are coming out ready to play. I mean, his energy is infectious. I mean, Shane Steichen, I get hyped. I mean, I get riled up watching his post-game locker room speeches. You know, the old "see you on Wednesday," the players go nuts. I mean, I know all coaches do that, but Shane just has this awesome presence to him. This was even before this season. Just in press conferences, he just never says he's never stumped for an answer. He never has to think about it. Just really, really sharp, really, really detail-oriented. Absolutely love what he has brought to the Indianapolis Colts. I might dare say that Shane is one of, I don't know, like the top 3 or 5 head coaches in the NFL. Now, that's one of those things that does end up being a semi-controversial statement because the body of work, he just doesn't have the resume as a head coach that some other guys have. But for me right now, I'm just looking at it in the sense that I don't know how many guys would have the Colts playing as well as he has the Colts playing. That's not to speak down on the roster. It's just, they've dealt with a lot. And I'm not so certain. Ooh, voice crack. I thought puberty was done. I'm not so certain that in a few years' time, he won't be considered to be one of the top 5 head coaches in football, one of the top 3, which we'll be able to look back and say, not for anything, he was one of the best then. His first year he was. That's where I'm at right now. I mean, Shane Steichen is a special head coach. So I just wanted to talk about that a little bit. And now what I want to do is tell you that how I became a Colts fan. It was in the title of the video on the back end. I get this question often because I do mention the fact that I'm not from Indianapolis. So I've told the story on the channel once before, but I will do it again because I know not everyone saw that. I know there are new people around, so it doesn't hurt to tell that story one more time, and we're going to get right into it. But before we do, I have to introduce myself. My name is Justin. This right here is the Riding the Bench Colts cast. As always, if you are enjoying the video, go ahead, shoot it a like. It's going to help me get out to as many Colts fans as humanly possible, not just the ones in Indianapolis, the ones in Germany, the ones in the UK, the ones on Long Island like myself, the ones in Florida, etc., etc. It's going to help me get out to as many as humanly possible. And if you want to stick around for the journey, we're on the road to 2,000 subscribers right now. If you are a returning listener, which is about half of you, and are not subscribed, which is about half of you, now may be the time to do that. But most importantly, enjoy the video. I'm going to give you the story of how I became a Colts fan. And then realistically, I would like to hear how you became a Colts fan as well. I mean, particularly you guys that aren't from Indianapolis, didn't grow up there. How did you come to be? Obviously, it's Peyton Manning, but I'm sure there had to be a moment in time, right? So I'll start with me. Now, when I was younger, and I'll say, whenever I'm talking about when I was younger, I always just say when I was 7 years old, just as like just as a number, right? So let's just say when I was 7 years old, okay? We're just going to call it that. We were brought down to the library in class. They wanted us to do a book report. They sit us down at the tables in the library, and they say, I want everyone to go around the library, look through the books, go through all that stuff, and find a biography of a person that inspires you. Now, at this point, I had been playing football for a couple of years, but I wasn't like deeply entrenched in like NFL or anything like that. Like I had probably watched some games with my dad, but I wasn't sitting there like I didn't know players and teams and all this stuff. I was only just getting introduced to the game at this moment. And not only that, I know it seems like I'm very studious when it comes to these Indianapolis Colts. I assure you, in school, I was anything but studious. If I could get, I would literally go into class. They would give you the syllabus with the assignments. And in high school, I would be like, okay, here's one assignment. I would pick an assignment that I didn't want to do every quarter. And I would just say, I'm not doing it. I just would not do it, right? Because an easy A is an easier C. I mean, that was literally my thought process in school all the way through. And, it got me this far, right? So people are going, they're looking through, and the people are picking Rosa Parks and John F. Kennedy, et cetera, right? And then there's me who is looking for the smallest book as humanly possible. And I find this book right here. And no, not just a book like this book, actually this book. When I made the Colts show, I just was thinking about this book because this book has really ultimately resulted in the fact that I have this show today. So I knew I had to go find it. And again, this was the smallest book on the shelf, and it ended up being the first football player I ever knew was Peyton Manning. And from there, I watched the team, and that was it. I was hooked. I mean, look at literally, this is an elementary book. I mean, my reading level has not at all gone up since this period of time. This is still a difficult read for me. But this right here is the reason that I'm a Colts fan. This right here is the reason that this account exists today. You can thank James Buckley Jr. for the existence of the Riding the Bench Colts cast. So now it's your turn. Curious, how did you become a Colts fan? Let's talk about it. You know I'm in the comments. You know I read them. It is what it is. But until next time, my name is Justin. This right here is the Riding the Bench Colts cast. Do not forget to watch the video. Eli Otero Jr. and his son on the back end of the show. All the details to donate are in the description. It's that time of the year in the Thanksgiving spirit. Some of us are very fortunate. Any dollar helps. I'm not getting a kickback off of any of these donations or anything like that. It's just the fact that I am not from Indianapolis. I love the fact that I represent a population of Colts fans that are from all over the place. I think it speaks to how great the Colts are. But one thing I do wish I can do is give back to the city and the community that is Indianapolis a bit more often. I'm hoping that this provides me with a day to do so. If you would consider donating, that would be wonderful. But until next time, my name is Justin. This right here is the Riding the Bench Colts cast. Go Colts.
My name's Eli Otero Jr. I am the father of this awesome kid here, Eli Otero III.
I'm Eli Otero III, and I'm cool, and we want to tell our story.
Eli was born with a disease called Alagille syndrome. It's a disease that complicates your body organs. In this case, it affected his liver. Very early age, he was diagnosed. He had severe abnormalities around his fingers and hands. They call them calcium deposits. You know, he could not, quality of life wasn't there. He couldn't grab a ball, he couldn't play with a game, he couldn't do things that normal kids do. And it got worse as he grew older. It was 2019, they put us on the list. As a child, you know, going through what he was going through, my mother and I, you know, we came up with a very creative way of helping him deal with it. We started incorporating our Riley's trips around events in Indianapolis. We're gonna do what we gotta do, and we're gonna have fun doing it. And it worked. We've always been a Colts fan. I've always been a Colts fan. Went to our first game, a little nervous, right? We was a little nervous. We had our masks in our pocket, actually. No lie, we was about 15 minutes in. We were sitting in the 600 sections, and Colts representative comes right up there, walks right up to Eli and said, "Hey, how would you guys like to get better seats?" They actually walked us down all the way to the bottom. We were in the most front row seats. Very first day as super fans, and I said, "Well, time to mask up," right?
Me and Dad goes on a jumbotron. We go crazy.
And as the years evolved, I've put together what you guys see today as Lucha Blue. It was the greatest day of our life.
When I woke up with the new liver, I felt good, and I just felt so good when I got out the hospital.
It's the ultimate gift. We can't be more blessed and more humbled by just receiving that call, and it turned his life completely around. He can do all the things that he's been wanting to do as a kid. It gave us a new purpose, you know, as far as, okay, we got this second chance, and what are we gonna do with it? You know what I mean? How can we give back? In 2021, I was named the Fan of the Year for the Colts. That changed our fandom completely. I mean, it gave us the opportunity to do more and give more. Yeah, we've been to the draft, we've been to the, you know, combine, we've been to the Super Bowl last year.
Me and my dad had so much fun together. We have so much memories.
We go to every game and we've collected these different autographs from the players and all that, and we pass them out to random kids in the game.
I'm like seeing other kids happy, and it just made me like the best experience in my life, and I just like making kids happy.
I think it's important to say yes to organ donation because it saves lives. It saved his life, it saved our life. And that's what we're all about, making a difference. And if you can make a difference, you donate.